Hello everyone and happy Wednesday. This week we are going to be discussing everything that has to do with self-confidence, self-care, self-improvement, relationship with yourself. So I figured that this would be important to kind of go over first because your relationship with yourself sets the tone for your relationship with everyone else. Doesn't matter who it is. And I know that, like me, you are probably more of a caretaker in the sense that, like, if anybody needs anything, you want to help them. You want to put everybody else first, especially your loved one that has the addiction issue, because a lot of the times, you know, especially if they're actively using, they're not necessarily putting themselves first. So you kind of like swoop in to do that for them. So it's important to turn the tables on that, because I don't know if you've heard this quote, but I'm sure you have because it's really popular and really commonly used. You can't pour from an empty cup, which is true. You can't help anyone else if you don't care for yourself first. So your relationship with yourself is the most important. You need to love yourself unconditionally. Okay? That's the first part, because this is your relationship with yourself. You can never get away from yourself no matter how hard you try. You're going to be with yourself all the time. So you need to love yourself. Okay? Now I know that, like me, you probably are aware that you have flaws. Okay? You have like physical flaws. Like me, there's a million things I could pick apart. Mental flaws, emotional flaws, maybe you're too clingy, maybe you're too, maybe you just like have more of a negative view on life most of the time. Maybe you're grumpy in the morning. Maybe, you know, you just have things that you wish you could change, okay? We all have flaws. Nobody's perfect, okay? That's another thing. I'm a perfectionist. I don't want to be, but that's another thing too. But firstly, we need to love ourselves unconditionally. We are our own greatest and biggest supporter. Okay, be your biggest cheerleader, because like I said, you're always with yourself. If you're constantly talking about how negative things are, how negative you are, everything's going to be negative, okay? You need to be your biggest cheerleader, your biggest supporter, okay? Even if you're not constantly telling yourself that, at least try to frame things to be a little bit more positive, okay? So firstly, that, okay? Also, if you are going to be your biggest supporter and you are in a relationship with yourself and you care about yourself, you need to practice self-care, okay? Self-care is really important. Self-care is anything that brings joy and peace to yourself. It could be something as little as making yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. It could be, sorry, I had to turn it off because the air went on. I thought something was happening. Taking yourself to the movies, taking yourself shopping, taking yourself to get your nails done or whatever. I know we can't really probably do a whole lot of that because of quarantine, but in general, anything like that. And it could be anything in between, whatever you want to do, whatever brings you joy, even if it's just taking 5 minutes to meditate or to just sit in silence. I do that a lot, actually. We have a swing on the front porch, and sometimes I'll just go out there and just sit in silence and not do anything. And I realize that it's actually very recharging for me. So yeah, anything that brings you joy. If you're more of an extrovert, you can go out with friends, you can go out with other people or whatever it is that brings you joy and brings you peace and kind of helps you recharge your batteries, reset everything. That's important too. Self-confidence. I don't have as much as I would like, but I am working on that. Talking in front of myself, you know, every week really does wonders for that. But self-confidence, having the self-confidence to do things, you know, and you might be wondering why self-confidence has to do what it has to do with this topic. But I mean, it's different than, you know, standing up straight, which I don't do as much as I should. But it's just the self-confidence and the self-assurance of knowing that no matter what happens, you have your back and you are going to get through it. Okay? Because we have a lot of negative things that we go through, scary experiences, bad experiences, all that. And it can be very hard on you. Okay? So if you're practicing self-care and, you know, all the things that are good for yourself to keep yourself good, you know, self-care is just part of it. But as long as you're keeping up all that stuff, and you will see how you succeed through different experiences, you will know that you will have the self-assurance that you can get through anything. Okay? It doesn't matter what it is. Like, you are strong, you are tough, you are good, and you will be able to get through anything that life throws at you. And that's another thing that just goes with that. You know, you're very self-assured, you are good, you are strong, you are capable, you are all of these things. Along the lines of what I just said, it's important to have I don't know what you want to say, like stream of consciousness, a self voice, the voice that you have in your head that says things like that. Because that's another thing that helps you. If you are constantly going through life saying, you know, I'm terrible at this, I'm not good, I'm not going to be okay, things aren't okay, all that kind of stuff, this is not going to help you. So I know it's really hard. It's not going to be like a light switch. You're not just going to like one day turn things around and be like, oh wow, I woke up today and I just can't stop talking about how great I am. It's not going to work like that. It's a process. You have to get in the habit of doing it. So you have to, you know, do little things like that where you talk to yourself in a better way. Like, I am capable, I am strong, I am this, I am that, all of these positive things. Because then you're going to train your mind to start thinking like that automatically. And it might take a while, like I said, but it's really worth it once you start focusing on it. So yes, another thing, when you start doing this and then, you know, you fill yourself up with all these good things and you start having a better idea of who you are and what you stand for and what you deserve and all that, you are going to be able to make boundaries a lot easier because you are going to know what you want and, like I said, what you deserve. So if you have a vision for yourself and you have an idea of what you want your life to look like, and, you know, just in the present but also in the future, you're going to be able to make boundaries that line up with that. Because then you're going to say, well, I don't want this to happen anymore. You know, like I want my life to be like this. So if anything crosses that boundary, I'm going to be able to identify it a lot easier. And then I'm going to be able to enforce that boundary. Because if you aren't taking care of yourself and then somebody tells you, you need to set a boundary, and you're like, well, what do I do? And then you're like, you know, they might give you a boundary to practice, or you might just try to make one, you know, on your own out of thin air. And so, sorry, my arm's getting tired, so I'm resting it on a computer. So you will be able to make boundaries that fit what you want, you know, because if somebody says, you know, you just shouldn't be with your partner, like at all. And you're gonna be like, well, I don't even know if that aligns with me, or even if it does because I'm mad. I'm not gonna be able to, you know, I'm not gonna be able to enforce that if I get to a point where I'm not mad anymore, or, you know, something like that. You get what I'm saying? But if you get to a point where you are strong in yourself, you know what you want, you know what you deserve, you know how you want your life to go, then you'll be able to say, you know what, I don't want to be with somebody who is actively using. And then when they're actively using, you will have the assurance to be like, all right, I don't want that in my life right now. And you'll be able to stick with it because you'll be a lot stronger in yourself versus whether, you know, somebody tells you that you should do that and then, you know, it actually happens and you're like, well, I don't know if that's what I want. You're going to know. And like I said, not all of this is black and white. There's going to be some gray area. You're not just going to wake up and be like, wow, I know what I want. It's going to take time. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be with it. And then, you know, as time goes on, hopefully you won't have to keep doing something like that. But, you know, it it won't be like a cycle like that. But hopefully, you know, like just in general with anyone, not even with your addicted loved one. You know, it could be with anyone. You can have boundaries with anyone. It's not just with them. It's just whatever makes you feel good and whatever kind of people you want in your life or whatever, you know, conversations you want to have in your life, whatever this, that, or whatever. The environment that you want your life to be in has a lot to do with boundaries with whoever. So yes, when you have a good foundation of self-care, self-assurance, self-love, all that stuff, it'll teach others how to treat you. Because that's a quote that I put in my blog. I can't remember the exact wordings, but it was basically how you love yourself is a reflection of how others should love you, or you teach others how to love you too. So, you know, not everybody's going to be able to read your mind, you know, especially your partner or whatever. But if you know how you want to be treated, then that's going to teach everybody else too. You know, if you talk to yourself negatively, if you talk down to yourself all the time, if you just talk about how terrible you are, how stupid you are, how unattractive you are, you're going to magnetize people in your life who are going to reinforce those beliefs. And they are going to tell you things like that. And you're just going to like take it because you're like, well, that's how I talk to myself, so it must be true. You know, but you don't want that. You don't want a life like that. But if you're talking to yourself about how amazing you are, or how great you are, or how pretty you are, and how much you have to offer, how smart you are, what things you can do for everybody else, you know, how any positive characteristics about yourself, then if somebody comes up to you and says, you're selfish or you're ugly, you're going to be like, what? That doesn't even resonate with me because I know it's not true. It's like, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but that is not true. So I'm just going to let you have that belief, whatever. I don't even listen to it. You know what I mean? So, you know, it sets the tone for everything, because then you're going to know, you're going to have that filter of what is true and what isn't true. So if you hear anything that doesn't resonate with you, you're going to immediately know that that's not true. And it's going to help your mood, because then you're not going to be drugged down by all these, things that aren't true and that don't have any meaning to you. You're not going to internalize it. So it sets the stage for everything. Like your self-relationship and your self-assurance and all of that sets the stage for how everything will go in your life, okay? And like I said, you're gonna feel selfish at first. You're gonna be like, well, if I do this, how is everything else gonna be taken care of or whatever? That kind of goes along with the trust issue. You have to have this assurance that even if you aren't controlling everything, things are gonna be just fine. You can take 5 minutes to yourself to, have just a minute to block out everything else and just recharge. You can have a minute to read a book or a positive thing, a poem, I don't know. You can have a minute to yourself to make yourself a cup of coffee and sit outside and watch the sunset or something. Like you have the time to do these things. Because if no matter how much you think you're doing, it's okay. The world is not going to stop spinning if you take a couple minutes to yourself. And the more often you do that, the easier it's going to be. So I hope you learned something from this video. If you have any comments or any concerns or anything that you would like to add, please feel free to let me know. You can either DM me on some social platform, whatever one you use. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, I'm on Facebook, all that stuff. You can send me a message through the blog. You can subscribe to the blog. You can subscribe to all of the things that I do, because videos are just one medium, one type of content that I do, just to switch it up. So, or you could just comment in this video. Comment on YouTube, comment on the one on Instagram. There's lots of ways to get a hold of me. If you have anything to share, if you have any tips on self-care, if you have anything you'd like to add, if you have anything that worked for you, I am always looking to get as much information as I can from everybody that I can. So yes, let me know. And yeah, I come out with these videos every Wednesday, so look forward to the next one. Look at my posts to see what's going on in between and whatever topic I'm going to discuss next. And yeah, get in contact with me. I want to know as many people as I can in this topic, and it makes our community a little bit stronger and a little bit bigger, and it makes things easier for all of us. So drop me a line, let me know what you think.